Hello and welcome back to the Jerusalem Post. I'm your host, Tamar Uriel-Beeri, joined this week by Dr. Anat Lea Bonshtien. Anat is the former chairwoman and director of the Smart Mobility Initiative at Israel's Prime Minister office. She currently serves as a partner at Mobilion Ventures. Anat, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you. Thank you.
Let's start off with a simple question. What is smart mobility?
Well, to explain it the best way, it's moving people and goods from point A to point B in the most efficient way. It's about reducing vehicle ownership and going to shared services. It's about reducing congestion and CO2 emissions and the inefficient use of land space. And all of that by the means of turning our mobility system to cleaner, either by electric vehicles and by shared services and by autonomous vehicle. And all of this is driven by mega trends that are shaping actually the future of how mobility will be especially in urban areas.
So this is an ecological effort at its core.
At its core, it's not only ecological, because it's also like looking at different communities which today don't have as much opportunities or for mobility if they're like on the outskirts or things like that. So you have to provide them also the ability, if not owning a vehicle, then how to get from point A to point B. So everything about accessibility is also under this smart mobility effort.
It's amazing that it's not often acknowledged how an environmental effort is oftentimes also an issue of accessibility and, friendliness to all communities. These things go hand in hand a lot of the time.
All right. And of course, also the geopolitical issue that was once maybe a driver was getting off the oil. It's also geopolitical and also environmental. So today there are already electric vehicles, and we're speaking about other kind of cleaner fuels. So from being geopolitical, it gotten to be a more broad approach, especially about clean air and everything and sustainability, but also about different economical factors, macro factors.
So what kind of projects in this field did you lead as the chairwoman and director of the Smart Mobility Initiative at the Prime Minister's office?
So first of all, the program coordinated the activities of 11 different ministries in the government. And why 11 different ministries? Because you have to get them all involved. So whether it's like the Ministry of Transportation that has to take care of all the regulation and everything, it's the Innovation Authority and Ministry of Economy, which need to promote innovation, building startup ecosystem. If it's the Ministry of Energy that promotes the energy projects, but also the regulation or the setback for the whole electric mobility part. So you have all the ministries involved, of course, the Ministry of Environmental Protection and Foreign Affairs, which we need to advocate Israel as a smart mobility hub. And actually, that was the mission that I was granted from the government, is to turn Israel into some kind of the Silicon Valley of the auto tech industry. So promoting here different projects, that means, okay, let's create here different research centers, taking the academy and bringing researchers, bringing them infrastructure, granting them financial grants to work on this subject, and also with different startups. So having them, giving them the ability to showcase their technologies via pilots, via POCs, via different business-related meetings with different multinationals. And actually, during that period, we took Israel from being known for Mobileye and Waze only to having almost 600 startups in this specific field, and having almost every multinational company that operates in the field of mobility have some kind of presence here in Israel.
This is just an extension of kind of the character of Israel as a startup nation in a way.
Exactly. So we said, okay, we're not an automotive country. We don't have, other than, the Susita once a long time ago.
For those who remember.
Yeah, exactly. So we don't have any automotive background, which is good because then we could, just play with whatever we think mobility is about. And we took our competences in data, in sensors, in artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, and everything. And we brought all those competences to form also a Autotech hub. So taking the technology and the innovation, the entrepreneurial spirit, and bring it to form a growth engine for Israel, which is today quite a growth engine.
Can you give any examples of something that, Israelis have touched on in their day-to-day that you perhaps worked on while advising in the Prime Minister's office?
Yeah, so for instance, we created a community. It started as a local community. Understanding, it's called Ecom Motion, and it came from the understanding that if you take entrepreneurs, if you take researchers, and you take different people that have crazy ideas, and you just and people from the industry, and you just get them to talk, that to get them to talk about the issues of the challenges of mobility and everything, and to exchange idea and knowledge, that's where you get the innovation. And as our government, our effort was to actually make this happen, to promote this. So we created a community. We started out on a local scale. It was like about 50 to 100 people in the first year, and today it's grown to be a global community of over 7,000 people in it, and it's an Israeli effort about creating an ecosystem of mobility. So this is called Ecom Motion, and today there are members from across the world of investors and entrepreneurs, startups, researchers, companies, NGOs, everyone around this mobility landscape.
Amazing. So how did you get about to eventually creating the Israeli Academic Center for Smart Mobility?
So we kind of looked at the whole, let's say, technology creation chain and said we have to support every segment of that chain, starting from basic research all the way until creating solutions. And one of the missing links was, okay, we have a really, really good academic backbone in Israel, but as the academy knows how to work, they're each in their lab. They don't even discuss with their next door neighbor. Nevertheless, with other universities. So we said we have to have take the different universities that are involved in the subsectors of smart mobility and put them under the same roof, not necessarily a physical roof, but and that means, okay, we provide them, of course, the financial support, but also a overhead program that will say, okay, we will give you the money or the grants, and you have to create some kind of a hub of the different researchers from the different universities to work together on a single mission. Because other than that, each researcher worked on his own lab. And by the way, we did the same thing with everything about electric propulsion. So we had a really, really good experience with a former research center that we built with almost all of the relevant universities or the universities in Israel around placing Israel as an electrochemical propulsion hub for promoting electric vehicle in the academy.
That's amazing. And you're really right in mentioning Israel's, academic advancements. It's truly one of the most advanced academic countries. Speaking of which, you have brought an impressive academic background from Tel Aviv University. You hold an MSc and a PhD in biochemistry. You're a former Mimshak fellow. How do you feel your studies have contributed to your achievements?
So, I get that from a lot of people because biochemistry, doesn't have anything to do with what I do today, which is mobility. But what my studies gave me is the ability to learn, the ability to ask questions, the ability to integrate knowledge and take it to where I want. I did that shift from being a biochemist in the lab to understanding that I want to take all the knowledge that I had, not necessarily in biochemistry, but as I mentioned, the ability to learn, to ask questions and all that. I want to take that and do something impactful. And again, I'm not saying every researcher is doing something on the micro level that will one day influence what we are doing today. Most of the startups starting out in an academy. But for me, I wanted to be more on the macro scale, to see and feel the impact. And that's why I joined the Mimshak program, which takes actually postdocs or docs in the energy technology related fields and incorporates them next to high-level decision makers within the government. And the position that I was I was approached to have was to be part of initiating an inter-ministerial program to promote Israel as a center of excellence and best practices in alternative fuels and smart mobility. So I had to deal here with a lot of different subsectors. It's chemistry and electric vehicles, and it's data, and it's cyber, and I could have never learned it on the micro scale. But again, taking my background and everything helped me to walk my way to understand how to integrate all of this into an actual program, and to leverage the knowledge both in the universities, in the academy, and also on the entrepreneurial side, and combine them together.
Something consistent throughout your career, and also now to this point, is that you've kind of been consistently in a position of leadership. And you come from this background of being an academic, of being a student, of having a PhD, of being a fellow. I'm curious if you find any sort of direct correlation between your learning to learn, like you said, your knowing to be a student, and your knowing to be a leader.
So I always, even when I had a small team back when I was in my studies doing my PhD, or afterwards, I always know that when working with teams, and especially in the government, think of it, that's a good example actually, because 87 civil servants were from different ministries, and they're not, they're not reporting to me on the hierarchy scale because I'm in a different office, but they're all under the same program. So how do you get people engaged into something to work with you? And that was something that I learned back from when I had small projects in the academy, or bigger projects after of like 100 people. It's always trying to engage them for a certain mission, making them understand that they're part of a bigger purpose, that everything that they do is meaningful, and we all are a piece of this puzzle. And without that piece, their piece, it won't work. So everyone is very relevant and very important to all those projects. Again, whether it's a small one or a larger project.
I think that's a very smart thing to say. I learned in a commander's course when I was in the IDF, and something that we learned there is the difference between positive and negative enforcement for students. And what you're discussing is, the longer term, more effective, scientifically proven, more effective method of leadership, which is positive enforcement. It's knowing that something you're doing is going to have a positive effect rather than doing something because you're being threatened in some way. So I'm curious, and I want to turn it real quick. How has the industry of smart mobility been impacted, in your opinion, by the Israel-Hamas war?
Well, I mean, overall, we don't know yet. Largely, but I can tell you that at least now on next week, I'm work traveling to Europe, to different places, to meet with different people about whether it's industries and investors and family offices, to actually tell them about the Israeli smart mobility ecosystem. And the thing is that they want to hear. They do want to hear. So I'm not saying I don't know how it is like on a broader scale, but at least the people that I work with, or even the new ones that I approach now, or even approached me knowing that I'll be in Europe traveling, are very much keen to know what is going on within, how to collaborate. So, at least from my angle, people are putting aside the Hamas war now, and actually, at the end of the day, people working together to promote things that are important for them, and from them, for an industry in Europe that needs to incorporate some kind of smart mobility innovation due to regulation or whatever. So and they're familiar with the Israeli ecosystem that might have some kind of innovation, then they will want to meet, and that's what I feel.
So through that experience, what would you recommend? Like, what would be your top tip to other leaders in their various industries, or perhaps specifically in smart mobility, in terms of how to manage in times of crisis?
So I think it's, first of all, try to get as much as business as usual. And when I speak to my colleagues from across the world, at the end of the day, they know me as a person. And like, I don't reflect everything, so they don't reflect the general opinion or whatever. So from continuous discussions, business-oriented and not business-oriented, is very important. Just a continuous relationship that we have built with different partners across the world is very important to continue, and hear what the other side has to say, remark on it in a very respectful way. But generally, yes, at the end of the day, people are people, and businesses need to strive and continue, and most of the people are all about that.
Amazing. I think that policy kind of applies across the board. And just one final question. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're up to now? You're currently partner at Mobilion Ventures. What's your work like today?
So again, going back to the macro level, so the Mobilion, for me, Mobilion Venture, it's a Israel Europe VC that focuses on sustainable mobility. So actually supporting Israeli companies, but not only Israel, also European companies, and we have in India also companies in early stage, using our strong network of partners in Europe and in the US to succeed in entering the market. So it's quite interesting to see how these companies grow, and we kind of work with them hands-on-hands approach, helping them to create those sustainable mobility solutions.
Amazing. Dr. Anat Bonshtien, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you. It was a real pleasure. Thank you.